Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. And coming up on today's episode, when it comes to the biggest shows in worldwide television history, there's one that stands far above the rest, in part because there was a lifeguard tower up high with a great view, although that wasn't necessarily the view that viewers were interested in. But when the TV rescues end and the jet skis go silent, normal life for the actors took over. And sometimes real life has greater challenges than running on a beach and pulling a swimmer from the pounding surf. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me with today's guest, cancer survivor and Summer Quinn from Baywatch, Nicole Eggert. If you'd like to be more involved with us at Still Here Hollywood, you definitely can. Just visit patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You can support us for as little as $3 a month. You can get our episodes a day before they post anywhere else. You can see what guests will be coming up and submit questions for them. You can even tell us what stars you want us to have on as guests. You'll see what goes on before and after the episode, plus exclusive behind-the-scenes info, pics, video, and more. Again, that's patreon.com/stillherehollywood. First of all, Nicole, thanks for coming in and doing this. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Who was it you were talking to who said you should do this?
Paul Ruddy, a good friend of mine. He's a casting director.
I see his name all the time. Paul Ruddy Casting. Paul Ruddy Casting.
He's amazing.
Is he?
I love him. I just love him. But we were having lunch, and he said, "Have you seen this podcast?" And he said, "You should talk to them. You should join the podcast, be a guest." And so, of course, I went home and I watched and listened, but I like watching when that's an option. And so here I am.
Oh, good.
And you guys welcome
Good
me.
word of mouth.
Yeah.
We're counting on that.
Yeah.
First off, let's talk about Baywatch.
Okay.
How did your role come about originally?
Well, it's interesting. I was doing a show called Charles in Charge, and it was a show that was doing syndication, and that wasn't quite so popular yet. And our executive producer, Al Burton, somehow was in contact with the executive producers of Baywatch, and they wanted to give a run at the syndication thing. And he was kind of showing them and talking to them about the experience and how it was going. And he got in business with them and wanted to do a spin-off of Baywatch and wanted it to be sort of a 90210-esque at the beach. And he said, I want Nicole to be in it, and then David Charvet, and then some more cast. They wanted to bring it on and do a spinoff, and it would be a high school at the beach, training to be lifeguards, and it was going to be its own thing. And I joined Baywatch in syndication. I did the first 2 years, and it became the #1 show in the world. And they were like, spinoff nothing. This is what's working, and we want it to stay like this. And so I, after 2 seasons, politely bowed out because it wasn't really what I had signed up for. I had some crazy idea in my head that if I left the show, I would be able to detach myself from the stigma that the show had given all of us as actors, which is not a thing. But at 20 years old, if I could go back and talk to that 20-year-old, you just wild ideas. So, that was really how I got involved, was Al Burton.
90210 at the beach sounds like a good description of it.
Yeah. And it would have been I think it would have been a great show, and it was a great idea, and Elizabeth Berkley was attached. We had a great cast.
Right.
Yeah.
And you did it with David Charvet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we had David Chokichi on. And he was very interesting about his experiences. It's a shame he's not good looking. What's the biggest downside to fame?
I think, for me, honestly, personally, dating. Dating, because people think that they have an idea of who you are. And that could be a number of things. And I think it's harder for people to get to know you without this preconceived notion that they have going in. And that really affects sort of the dating aspect, for me at least. That's just, I can only speak for myself. And I think that it just, it really affects that. because they're like, wait a minute, this isn't who I thought you were, or, and you're just, because I'm not like any of the characters I've ever played. And yeah, I find that the preconceived notion of who you are, and maybe that's more than just in dating, it's just in general, the preconceived notion, but it affects me the most with dating.
What was it like being on the biggest show in the world?
Weird.
Did you realize it at the time?
Well, we knew because we see the numbers, but we were being ripped apart in the press. Let's face it, the casting doors were not opening anymore. And I had quite an accomplished career leading up to that. I had worked with some amazing directors and actors and done some amazing projects. And then all of a sudden it was like, we were called Baywatch bimbos, and these dumb bimbos on the beach, and it's TNA, and it's all of this. And so that was like really affecting it. And then on the other hand, you have this #1 hit on your hand, and it's like, what a kerfuffle. Like, what a mess.
The first time you were asked to put on a red bathing suit and then run in slow motion, how did you feel about that?
Okay, well, here's the thing about the slow motion running, is we had no idea that there was such a thing as slow motion. We trailblazed that, okay? We were the guinea pigs the first 2 seasons of this new look of Baywatch. Nobody mentioned the slow-mo, and in fact, I heard that happened by accident in the editing room to draw out, it was a timing thing, and then editor put it in slow-mo, the run, for a montage, and then everybody fell in love with it. So I was running full speed. And let me tell you something, full speed running in slow motion is not cute. Not cute at all. So the actors later had it so much easier because they knew what they were going into. They knew there would be, their run would be put into slow motion. So they could slow it down and be more, conscious of the looks they had on their face or the way they were holding their body. Not me. I was out there like trying to be Miss Athletic running. And then they would put it in slow-mo. So I had a lot of cringe-worthy moments.
Did you?
Yeah. I really did.
Well, as long as nobody else cringes. Tell me more about that Baywatch bias that follows the actors afterwards. How hard was it getting another job or making your way through life?
It became really hard. It really was. It changed everything. It changed everything for me. And I really stepped away from the industry after that because I was so frustrated and disappointed and didn't really understand. And I had been working since I was 5 years old. And I was now in my early 20s. And I thought, F it, I'm just going to just live a little. I'm just going to go on vacations and travel and be irresponsible and not be up juggling school and work. And I'm just going to go live a little and rebel a little if you must, So that's sort of where I went with it for there. I was like, I'm going to dye my hair brown because I've always wanted to do that. And I'm going to cut my hair off again. And I'm just going to do what I want to do. And, not focus on it because it really was nope. Just a lot of no's, a lot of closed doors, a lot of you can't be taken seriously anymore.
Would you ever consider going back to acting? I mean, you said you've really stepped away.
I really, yes, I will go back to it. I just did a scene in a Lifetime movie, and I had a great time. And it was really great to be doing something that wasn't centered around cancer, and doing what I know and love. It was great. But, I've only had 2 auditions in like 2 years. So it's sort of out of my hands. And all I can really do is manifest it, right? Because if the auditions aren't there, they're just not there.
And that happens a lot in Hollywood, other places too. Were you recognized a lot when you were doing Baywatch?
Yeah, still. still, and especially in Europe. That was weird because I'd been an actor my whole life, and then to go to Europe and suddenly being, and we used to go to Europe a lot. Both of my parents were European. And then to go there and then suddenly your pictures are up on things and you're being recognized. And now you have to have security. And it was like, what is going on here? But, living in California, it's easier. People, they recognize you, but they used to it. And they pretty much leave you alone.
They stand back, give you your space for the most part.
For the most part. Now that they're cell phones, though, they're recording you from afar.
Yes. Yeah. How does that happen?
Yeah. Technology.
Tell me about Charles in Charge.
Charles in Charge was... It was I had auditioned for Al Burton, the executive producer, so many times, and he'd done Facts of Life. He had so many great shows, and I knew I wanted to work with him. And I was actually had a reoccurring on Who's the Boss at the time. And funny enough, Circus of the Stars was casting, and I think it was Alyssa Milano who went to try out, and I went with her, and I wanted to be on it so bad. I wanted Circus of the Stars so bad. And they let me audition, and they said, but you have to be on a show. And I was like, God, I need to get on a show. How do I get on a show so that I can be on Circus of the Stars? Like, that was my mentality. I was 12, 13 years old. And Al Burton called with Charles in Charge. And I said, oh, yes, I want to work with you, and I want to be on Circus of the Stars. Sign me up. And I started that show the day I was supposed to start high school.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, you got an education.
Did I? Yes, I was set schooled. So I juggled high school and that show, as did the other two kids that played my brother and sister, and it ended right after I graduated.
That's coincidental.
Yeah, that was my high school years.
When you're that age, I think it's pretty normal to go, where is this leading? What'll I do next? Did you go through those kinds of doubts, self-questioning?
Not as far as acting. I've been asked this question recently a couple times, and it's funny because I have put some thought into it, and I thought, because I started so young, I think, at 5, that it was something that was normal to me, and it wasn't ever something that I set out to do. It wasn't as if I said to my parents, hey, I want to be an actress. I sort of fell into it and grew up with it being part of my life. So therefore, I always just thought it was going to be there, like that was just my normal, and didn't really think ahead very much. But then I think about myself, and I was just kind of like that in general in life. I didn't do a lot of thinking of consequences or planning out of the future. And no, I never really worried about that.
What would you have done had you not become an actress?
I don't know. I've also put a lot of thought into that, and I weirdly go into maybe that I would be in law, or some sort of real estate, because real estate is something I naturally gravitated to and did do through my life. That's how I used my money, was in real estate, and I've always been super passionate about it. But also law intrigues me. But I'll never know. I'll never know.
Don't sell yourself short. And in Los Angeles, real estate is something that is always on the front burner. I mean, everybody's going into real estate at some point or another, it seems. I've known quite a few people who went into that line of work, selling homes, finding buyers, sellers. I don't know. It sounds awfully hard.
Yes. I was more into, like, when they said to me, you have to do something with your money. At 15, I immediately went to real estate. And so I was like, I'll buy a house. And I always was, and I think I got this from my dad. We would always go look at open houses. And I think because he was from Germany and moved out to Los Angeles and was like living in a small apartment in Hollywood, met my mother who was from England, and she was living in Glendale. And then they built this home in Huntington Beach. And it was a big process for them. There was nothing out in Huntington Beach. It was a big, tract housing was becoming a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of their life for a few years was really centered around that. So new construction would be going up, and me and my dad always wanted to go see. And we were always very interested in and looking at the land value. And I don't know why. It's just what we did on the weekends. And so that's what I did. And I still love it. I still do. I don't know so much about being the realtor.
Well,
I don't know about that.
I had a good friend who went from retail to real estate, and I went to quite a few open houses with him, and it just seemed like too much work.
It's a lot of work.
Yes,
and you
putting
have to be
out
very
the
social.
sign. Yes, you have to be very social and be able to talk to people. Can you tell me about working with Scott Baio?
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
And we'll be right back. If this is your first time watching or listening to Still Here Hollywood, what took you so long? Even if you're a longtime fan, I have a favor to ask. If you feel it in your heart, please like and follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. Or if you watch on YouTube, please subscribe. And with both, it would be great if you rated and commented on your favorite episodes. Thank you so much. And now, on with the show. Can you tell me about working with Scott Baio?
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Good answer.
I don't recommend it. And, that was hard. He was a very powerful force on that set, as was his father. And I think they ran that set, and a lot of people were very intimidated by them and their presence. And for me, he took a liking to me at a very young age, and started grooming me, for a lack of a better word, and I guess it is the word, and really, professed a love for me and would sort of try to normalize. He would always bring up Elvis and Priscilla to normalize the age gap, and show me a lot of things about them. And it was hard because I also got a lot of resistance from the other actors, because it seemed like I was being favored. So it strained the relationship with other people. And then I had this attention from him, and then the attention started becoming a physical attention. And then it, turned into an abuse and a mental abuse, because I was also told, not that this had to be private and this had to be kept secret, and everybody would lose their job. And I was very professional by that age. I mean, I really respected people's time and jobs, and I understood. And that would be the last thing on earth I would want, is for this show to blow up and everybody be out of it. And so I kept that secret, and also out of embarrassment. And yeah, that was the really dark side to Charles in Charge. It was this amazing time in my life, and it was this horrible time in my life. And I still look back at it that way, as horrible and amazing.
I'm surprised that you didn't have someone on the set, that they didn't assign someone to you to kind of look after your well-being.
Well, sure. Listen, when you're in the same place every day, all day long, rules get a little loosey-goosey. And we did have our tutor on the set who was there all the time. There were parents in and out, and they were looking out for us. But there's backstage, and there is also offset. And that's the part, is after hours. And that's sort of where the worst of it happened. The stuff that happened on set and behind set, behind the front door and backstage, there was things happening, and that's why I had 25 eyewitnesses come forward talking about what they saw, and the other actor coming forward saying what he saw, and I could back up what happened to him, what I saw happening to him. And so there's things that, you're not allowed backstage. Even if you're there chaperoning, you are in the front with everybody else. And once we go behind those doors, it's really only cast back there.
How old were you when this was happening?
It started around 13, 14 years old.
And how old was he?
Late 20s, almost 30. I'm not sure of our exact, I think it's a 17-year age difference, I want to say. He was a grown adult.
Did you file sexual allegations or accusations against him?
I did. An investigation was done. It's sealed because it's minors. A lot of people came forward for me, and I was really appreciative of that. The DA said it was credible, found it completely credible, and could not prosecute with statute of limitations.
If your daughters came to you and said they wanted to get into acting, what would you tell them?
Well, I would ask them why. First of all, it's very important as to why you want to be in the industry. And I think that I would really support my kids, whatever they want to do. Luckily, they don't. Luckily, they have no interest whatsoever. But if they did, and for the right reasons, I would explore it with them. I also wouldn't be maybe as naive as my mother, and definitely more present.
Well, they came to Hollywood not really knowing the landscape, so to speak. They weren't naive so much as they weren't educated about it.
Right. 100%. And I don't blame, I don't blame my mother. Do I fault her? I do. There are things that I'm processing and dealing with and have been for years. But not only was it a different time, like you said, this was my parents who grew up during World War II. This was a different life. I couldn't complain to them about very much as a kid, in all honesty. And I understood that. They were dodging bombs, and I'm complaining about, being on a TV show, things like that. It was a very, it was hard to navigate.
Do you have siblings you could confide in?
I do have a sister, but she's significantly younger than I, and we're 13 years apart, and she was just a little child at the time. So no. I did have friends that I talked about it with, and people could see it. I mean, people saw what was happening. He would come down to Orange County and be around my friends, like with pictures. So they knew. People knew. But there's a funny aspect to it, because when it's a celebrity, as he was considered, people really kind of used to give a lot of leeway to that and looked at it very differently.
And kind of consider it normal.
Yeah. Luckily, that's not a thing anymore.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm still dealing with cancer. It's something that I will be dealing with for the next 10 years, they say. But there's, the science is so advanced, and the medicines and the medications and the treatments, and my body's responding really well to them, knock on wood. And so I'm doing well. I'm thriving.
How did you find out you had cancer?
I did a self-exam. I could feel a little bit of throbbing in my breast, and I got in the shower and did a self-exam, and I found it. I had been doing my mammograms, and I had been doing ultrasounds because I have dense breast tissue. And it was missed. It just was missed. And it started screaming at me when I'm here. I'm here, pay attention to me. And I listened and I found it.
Were you surprised, depressed?
I was devastated.
Oh, okay, that's a good word.
I was devastated. Kind of that moment when you hear something so horrible and you kind of go deaf. Like I couldn't hear anything. I just was frozen with fear. I'm a mother of 2 girls, single mother, 100% single mom. Not like they go to the dad on the weekends or 50-50. This is a 100% deal. We don't have family here anymore, or any family I have that's living doesn't live nearby. So it's, it was horrifying because my youngest was only 12 at the time. That just can't be.
How long have you been dealing with it?
I was diagnosed in October of 2023. So we're going on almost 2 years here.
Yeah. Tell me, what was the worst part of the treatment?
Listen, the treatment, honestly, although it's horrible and it's painful, that's a physical pain. I'll do that all day long. The hardest part of it is just accepting that you have it. I think that the acceptance of it is the hardest part. And to stay in a positive place instead of constantly going to the negative of like what could be, what could happen. I think that for me is that's the most difficult thing, is to stay on track of being positive. And, the treatment, listen, we could go on and I could whine to you all day long about the fevers and the chills and the aches and the pains and the throbbing of your organs. And it just feels like you're being poisoned. But it's something that, unless you've gone through it, I'll spare you the horrible details, and you'll never really understand. It's like childbirth. Until you do it, you're never going to get it. So that was just more of a physical pain. The hair loss and all of that, I was fine with it. I just didn't care as long as it was helping me. And I think that it was easier for me to deal with all the chemo and the radiation and all of that because my body was responding to it. And I felt like, okay, we're being proactive, we're doing something. And when I stopped the chemo, sort of where I panicked, because it was like, okay, we've done what we can. They threw the hardest chemo they have out there at me, the strongest. And so that was sort of like, we're not doing anything. And that was hard.
Do you belong to any kind of a support group?
I do. There's a wonderful place, We Spark, in Sherman Oaks on Ventura. And I do a lot of advocacy. So I feel like that helps a lot. And just sharing stories with other survivors is really key.
I was going to ask you if you're cancer-free now, but...
It's dormant. It got into my lymphatic system. So that's where I'm at high risk for recurrence. But no signs of it right now. It's not giving me a hard time right now. And I'm on targeted therapy, a targeted treatment to keep it at bay. I'm on a number of hormone blockers. Mine was hormone positive. It was caused by estrogen. So I'm doing what I can. And then on the other side of that, I do everything I can nutritionally to help keep it at bay, because what people are not really realizing is the numbers are so high because of, it's really hard to be healthy in America, if we're going to really be honest. It's a very hard country to be healthy in. And so things that you're putting in your body are things you're putting on your body, including your clothing, your products, your hair, shampoo. Everything is such a contributing factor. And I really kind of dove into that world to keep my sanity and to keep me feeling like I'm controlling the uncontrollables, or the controllables. And so I'm doing everything I can on that end, and that's it. At least I can say I gave it my all,
What have you learned about cancer patients that you might not have known before? Are they a resilient bunch? Are they tough? What have you learned?
I think it's a really mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. The one thing I've learned that seems to be common is that everybody's so accepting and warm and open, and they'll put their arms around you and share their stories. So that's been wonderful. What I do realize is a lot of, and I mostly interact with breast cancer patients, obviously. That's sort of my world. A lot of people just go along with the steps that they're given from their doctors without self-advocating, without looking and researching what that means. And I think that works for some, because what you don't know doesn't hurt you.
Do you think they feel ill-equipped to absorb all this information?
I think some people, some people. I was just talking to the nurse at my surgeon's office, and she was asking me if I could put together some resources for women in the Hispanic community that come in. She says a lot of times they'll say they don't have access to the internet, or because of the language barrier, they just sort of throw their hands up and get exhausted, or they're waiting to be reached out to for the next steps, instead of realizing that you have to advocate.
Take the step.
You have to, yes. So I'm in the process of doing that. I'm going to put together, sort of a leaflet, a little quick handbook of this is what you should do. This is where you can find it. Here's, the questions you should ask. And it's such a learning process, and you have to be open to it because so much information is flying at you. Right? There's so many theories and this, and there's so many rabbit holes you could go down, and you do go down. And, so I really try to stick to the scientifically backed supplements and things like that. I do some that aren't. Like, I'm a little bit in the juju. I eat apricot seeds, which is not really legally sold here, but I eat them. They're full of arsenic. And I drink soursop tea because I've heard of villages that drink that and they don't have any cancer. So I do it all. I kind of feel like for me what works is doing all the things. Yeah.
It sounds like you have a positive attitude, which I think is very important. What would you tell other women?
First, you have to realize it doesn't have to be a death sentence. So if you can get past that part and realize that there's so much out there that you can do for yourself and to help yourself, and that the treatments do work. Because a negative body and a sad body has a harder time healing. And I know that sounds crazy. It's like, well, you're dealt this, how are you supposed to be happy? And I do get sad and I do get down, and I have grace with myself. And I say, this is completely normal. It's completely normal to go to that deep, dark place. But you have to say, okay, that is an option. But you know what else is an option? Is beating this and living a fantastic life going forward. So I think getting your mind in the most positive place that you can, whatever that means for you. Some people it's church. For me, it's meditation. I do guided meditation. I see a shaman. I do all the things that I feel like bring me peace. And that's different for everybody, but you have to find that. So that's like the number one, is to get your head and your spirit.
You said you have 2 daughters? Mm-hmm. How old are they?
One is 27 and one is 13.
I never would have guessed. You don't look old enough to have a 27-year-old daughter.
I am.
Congratulations. Good for you. Have you had, you must have had conversations with them.
Hardest conversations I've ever had to have in my life.
Really? How so?
Telling them that this was my diagnosis.
And did they handle it okay?
They did. They did. They handle it they process it very differently. They're 2 very different human beings. My youngest, when I told her, the look on her face broke my heart. My whole body shattered when I looked at her face. So I immediately said to her, no, it's not a big deal. It's just something that I have to do a little bit of treatment and some surgery, and it's going to be gone, and we have nothing to worry about. So I kept her in that mind space. And then kind of as things went along, said, look, this kind of could happen. I might look like this, I had her help me shave my head, and we had fun. We put on loud music and shaved my head. And, I said to her, I always wanted to know what it feels like to have a shaved head. Let's do it, and tried to make fun with it. The weekends after chemo that I was at my worst, I would make plans for her to not be in the house. And not to say that she hasn't seen some really bad moments, But I've really kind of tried to protect her, shield her more from it.
What is the most surprising thing you learned from having cancer?
That it would make me such a better version of myself. It's so strange, and I know I'm not the only one that says this. It's like this club I never wanted to be a part of, ever, but I don't think I would trade it. I don't think I would go back and do it any differently. I will never be the same person, ever, and for the better, like milestones for the better. And a lot of people talk about how you get rid of cancer and how you deal with cancer, and I'm really in a moment right now of like, how did you get cancer? And I can see it. I can see all the signs, and I can pinpoint it all, and I don't ever want to be that person again.
How do you think about your career and what lies ahead?
I realized that not thinking about it is probably the best. It's such a strange time in the industry. As you know, it's changed so much. It's not anything like it used to be. And I haven't really been that involved in the entertainment industry for so many years. So trying to step back into it is learning it all over, learning how everything is done now and just how different it is. So a lot of my focus is more on sharing my story and advocating for other patients and podcasting. I've fallen in love with this world. I love it. I love how uncensored it is. And just going with the flow. I've given up anymore of trying to have a plan in the future and what I want things to look like, because life is a funny joke. It'll really throw curveballs at you. So I really am in a headspace where what's meant to be is going to be. Like for real, I think that now. I always knew that was true, but for now I feel it.
I hate that.
Yeah. I know, it's hard. It's frustrating.
Well, sometimes it'd be nice if you had a little more control over certain things.
It's true.
Because it just keeps changing. And I keep aging.
Right.
There are certain, I've heard and I've seen, there are certain weird side effects that happen. What have you experienced?
Listen, how much time do you have? The side effects. Okay, I think the one I hate the most, there's two that I hate the most. One is the memory loss. Like the chemo brain is a real thing. And it's not like brain fog or anything. I'll just literally blank out. So I have to write everything down. It's just a little bit of a bummer because that's coming to me with my age anyway. It really accelerated it. So I was like, that's a jip right there.
Right.
The damage that it does do to the brain. And then my feet just are not ever going to be the same. They hurt. I mean, it's pain that it's kind of hard to describe. If I sit for too long and I get up and I try to walk, I mean, I look 80 years old.
Oh, God, I can relate to this.
So it takes a little, like, getting up and moving around takes some warming up, doesn't it?
What was your lowest point? Was it telling your daughter? Was that the lowest point of your illness?
Probably that moment of seeing her face when she was expecting me to say no. It was, the test came back as benign. And the drop and the dread in that little baby's face was, it's a face I don't want to see. Yeah.
We'll be back in a moment. We had Heather Thomas on, and she talked to us a great deal about her situation with stalkers. Oh. And she had, I think she said, hundreds of restraining orders.
Oh.
And virtually left the business because some of them were overzealous. And one of them even broke into her house.
Oh.
And she shot him. At least that's what she told us. What has been your scariest fan encounter?
I have no stories. I have nothing to live up to that.
Good.
Honestly, I've had some fans that were very persistent and relevant in my life, and or constantly writing to me or supporting me. But it's always been very positive. I've had some flashers at appearances, but that was more comical than traumatizing. And honestly, the only time I've had stalkers or anything scary happen was after I spoke out against Scott Baio. And a lot of people, oddly, it happened as Trump was running for office, and he came out as a huge Trump supporter, and it was all in that same timing. And so a lot of people were convinced that it was a political move on my behalf. And so he had some very strong MAGA fans that would start showing up at my house. A lot of death threats. Somebody tried to press charges against me for sexual assault. They called my local police department. My police department, they came and knocked on my door and said, "You need to be careful. This woman said that you sexually assaulted her." And by the end of the report, they realized that she admitted that her and I have never even been in the same room or even at the same state that we know of at the same time. Crazy. Having pizzas and sodas delivered to my home over and over and over. So there were 6 would happen in a day. Things like that. Weird. And that's when I got scared.
Do you like pizza?
I don't. I'm not. And I've never had a soda. If you can believe, I have never sat and drank an entire soda. I don't drink soda, and pizza's okay sometimes, but no, we're not generally pizza fans. But I think it was just for them to let me know that they knew where I was. And my daughter was little at the time, and so we had to leave the home for a while. Luckily, I had some family to stay with, and then we eventually moved. And that's the only time I really had scary encounters where I took it serious.
Yeah. Do you ultimately, in retrospect, regret having done Baywatch?
No, because you can't have regrets. You can't think what if. And it's been so long and so full circle now that people look at it fondly now. It's a whole different vibe when it comes up now. And it takes people back to a time in the 90s when life was pretty fun and people look at it fondly. And I've made so many friends. I got to produce a documentary about it and bring it back full circle. And, no, I can't live with any kind of regret.
You worked on the docuseries after Baywatch.
Yes.
How was that?
It was amazing. I knew I wanted to do something with Baywatch and give it a new life. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And I went to networks, and a lot of it was a lot of people were pushing doing a reality kind of situation. I thought, no, I don't think that's going to work. That's going to be just like the original show. That's not, I want something cool. And one day I was talking to a friend of mine who ultimately ended up directing it. And we were talking about documentaries because we're both big documentary buffs. And he said, "What about doing it as a documentary?" And I thought, that's what I want to do. That's it. And so my first call was to Hasselhoff, and I said, "What do you think? Would you do it?" And he said yes. And I thought, well, if he's in, everybody else will be in, and let's go. And so I just started calling everybody and rounding everybody up. 5 years later.
Later that same day.
A pandemic, a cancer diagnosis, chemotherapy. And 5 years later, it was acquired by Disney and streaming on Hulu. And it's great. It's a great watch. You don't have to be a Baywatch fan to enjoy it. And it's definitely more of a story of human beings and their lives and their journeys. And it's kind of the same questions that we were talking about. Would you do it again? And how did it affect your life? And And it's great. And there's so many great people that were associated with that show that kind of got glossed over. You know, it was like the sea of beautiful people. And, oh, which one was that? The blonde. Which blonde? So it was more like, let's get to know everybody and talk about life and the whole aging process, too, because they love to catch us females and put they don't do it to the men, they only do it to the women, and put a picture of us now out running to the market or walking your dog and put it next to you posing at, in your 20s and say, what happened to them? And, so yeah, let's talk about that. What happened? And that's sort of what the documentary is.
Well, did everyone on the cast come back?
Everybody that we asked did, except Pamela. But Pamela was shooting her own documentary at the time, so I completely get it and understand it. And Fox had an interview with her that they had never aired. So we did get to use original interview with her, sit down with her on. So it all worked out.
I recently watched The Last Showgirl, and she was very good in that, I thought. Well, she got an Oscar nomination, didn't she?
She got a Golden Globe.
Golden Globe.
Mm-hmm.
She was very good in it.
I haven't seen it yet.
Watch
it seems like it was definitely a role of a lifetime for her. Like
and it came at the right time, I think. She was trying to figure out what to do, I believe. What direction she wanted to go in. What do you make of her not wearing makeup anymore? I mean, it's as though she doesn't. She's turned the page on that whole glitz and glamour thing.
Well, I always thought she was prettier without the makeup. I saw her with her little freckles and natural at work, and before she did all the glam, and I always thought she was prettier that way. And I think for her to do a complete transformation, it was the right thing to do. It was a smart move as well because it got everybody's attention and she looks great, so she can pull it off. And listen, whatever makes you feel good, that's when you're going to shine. Mm-hmm. And if that's how she feels, like that's what makes her feel good right now, then do it. And when you shine on the inside and when you feel good, you look better on the outside. It's just a fact.
When and where will we see you again?
I don't know. You can see me on my podcast. You'll see me here. I have a podcast that I do once a week called Perfectly Twisted. And I do that. I'm doing a lot of speaking, for Advocacy. I do a lot of that. I do have a Lifetime movie coming out in September, I believe. And I don't know. That's sort of all up in the air.
What does Perfectly Twisted mean?
It's my sense of humor.
Oh, perfectly twisted, huh?
It is. I'm a little bit on the dark side of humor. I like to laugh. I like to laugh at life.
Yeah. Pam was in Playboy many times. Did they ever come to you or approach you? They did.
They did. A number of times. And I remember them coming to me and they wanted to do a layout and it was, a lot of money. And I wanted to do it. I wanted to be like a fairy in a garden. And I was so on the wrong page of what I wanted my layout to look like. And I ended up walking away from it because it wasn't, I wanted wings. I wanted to look like some fairy in a garden. And they were like, have you looked at the magazine? And it was before it got a little bit more artsy. It was very much like the Playboy playbook. And so that didn't work out. And then they did a thing with all the Baywatch girls. And they had asked me to be a part of that. And then I definitely didn't want to do it because at the time we were being called Baywatch bimbos. And I was trying to escape that. And that wasn't going to help to all of us get in our, red bathing suit with it half hanging off. That wasn't in the cards for me. So I never ended up doing it. But I did want to because I thought it was so iconic. But it just never worked out.
Damn. You recently lost one of your castmates to Parkinson's. Were you in touch with them or? Yes.
Michael Newman was very much in the documentary. And he got to see the documentary and come to the premiere and the party and all of it, which was amazing. And Yeah, that's really hard. It was really difficult because he was this Iron Man. And this is this is life throws horrible jokes at you. So, but he was active and out there in the ocean, still paddle boarding and still working out till the end. He was determined, and that's what made him happy. And he was still doing it. So it was amazing.
I'm a big fan of the documentary availability these days with things like Netflix and Prime Video and Hulu. Would you consider doing more in that vein from a creative standpoint rather than in front of the camera?
Yes. I don't know if it would be documentary making because I'll tell you something, it's a lot of work and there's not a lot of money. We broke even on it, and it has to be, you have to be very passionate about it. Like I said, 5 years of working on it. And so documentary making is tough. It really is hard. Although I documented my journey, my cancer journey too. I recorded the good, the bad, the ugly of that. I don't know if I'll do something with that or not, maybe one day. But I do love producing. I do love being behind the camera, very much so. So it is something that I entertain. But then again, doing that also made me start itching to be in front of the camera. I really love the process. I'm just one of those people that I love the industry for the process. I love it from the idea, the conception, to the journey of it and the final product. And I just, that's the part that I love.
What's it like raising 2 daughters in Hollywood as a single mom?
Raising 2 kids on your own is just hard. It's just a lot. But it's what makes me happy. And I fortunately was able to cash in on things so that I could be at home raising both of them. Because I had to do mom and dad. And I knew I would never get that time back. And I figured my career is something that kind of took a back seat to being a mom. But because I had done all the work and I had worked so hard for so many years, it gave me the leeway to be able to sort of be what felt like to them as a stay-at-home mom. So it's been a huge blessing for me in that respect. But it's hard. And one daughter can't stand the fact, if there's paparazzi and all of that. And then the younger one, or when people recognize, they say, Eggert, oh, are you related to? And she's like, oh. And then my youngest is like, yes, I am, She's very proud of it and loves it when people, or when her teacher said, is your mom Nicole? Yes. So they have very different takes on it.
Do their friends know that you were on Baywatch?
Yeah, they do. And, one of them hates it, one of them loves it.
Well, I think I'm done. Until we see you again in October on, what is it, a Lifetime movie?
Yes.
Maybe. We'll look forward to it.
Maybe.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Best of luck with your health issues.
Thank you. Yep, that's the number one right now.
Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerly. Theme music by Brian Sanashin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.